Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt Podcast Show, a weekly podcast designed to help you as a manager and leader unlock your potential, both inside and outside of work, with the ultimate aim of delivering the results you will need. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already, and make sure you don't miss any other episodes. Also, share it with anyone else who could get the benefit. Right, without any more delay, let's get on with this week's show. Okay then, welcome to the show. So, over in Britain this time of year, and usually it's very, very warm indeed. And the problem with the British is that we continually talk about the weather. We love to talk about the weather when it's raining, we love to talk about the weather when it's sunny, and of course it's either too cold or too warm. Currently, it's too warm, and that makes people uncomfortable. And it also feels that they are challenged when it comes to some of the work that they have to do regarding the heat. But this week's show, I want to focus around people and the feeling of challenging others, and how much of a problem that can be in the way that they work. Now, let's think about it. You've got to think of challenging others to deliver results, because that's what you do as a leader. Now, I've been doing quite a bit of, over the years, talent reviews, and you talk to your staff appraisals over time, and a lot of the time, the conversation comes back to the fact that people feel that they're not challenging enough. They feel that they're not actively challenging, that they're not going out there. Sometimes you hear things like, oh, that person's okay, but he's too nice. I've had that said about me a few times. Too nice to succeed. Oh, he needs to get an edge, or they need to grow some teeth, or even worse, get a pair. Well, these days, that kind of terminology, thankfully, is fading away. And to be more confrontational. Well, the problem is with those kind of languages, it all sounds very confrontational. It always sounds like it's a negative in some way. And maybe that's because we work in friendly cultures these days, where you do have an element of being good, and there's nothing wrong with that. You have a culture that wants to support people, don't want to be seen as a negative place to be, where people are always having a go at others, or being bullying and harassing. That's the worst thing you want to hear in a business. And maybe it's society. There's a lot of changes in society where we're forced away from challenging, that we're not competitive, and it's all seen as negative, But what the big thing you've got to take away as a leader, and obviously a manager listening to this podcast, is that it's part of your job as a manager to set challenges for others. And there is going to be times where people are not going to be so happy about the fact that you've set them the challenges. They're not going to be happy that you want them to do something that they don't necessarily want to do, or worsely, don't see it as their job. So how do we challenge in the right way? How do we challenge in the right way to get results? How do we look at the what's as well as the how's? How do we get that magic edge and the teeth we need without being a little bit of a div? And how do we get people around us to respect the authority you have without it being around the authority of your title or the authority of the place you are in your business? Now, that is always about the idea of coaching and guiding people to develop the ability to deliver results. So you're going to have your results to be delivered by your boss or by the business, and you've got to make sure others do that. When you were on your own, when you were working, when you were down the ranks maybe, then you were just a doer. You came in, did the job, that was fine. But how do we do the do's without being too much of a challenge of the person? So, as ever in my podcast, I try to give you some do's and don'ts. So let's work through some do's and don'ts and how to challenge others. Let's start with the do's. Is everyone on the same page? Do they know the whys of what they're trying to do? Do they understand why they're there? Because that makes it a lot easier to challenge people when we're all on the same page. Do they all know that this is the way that we're going to work, this is how we're going to deliver the results, and of course, make sure that they're on that same journey with you. That makes it so difficult for people, and difficult for them to sort of rebel against, because they know that this is the way it's going to work. Secondly, know the person behind the position. So know that person that you're going to ask to do it. Know them away from work as well as in work. Know them around what makes them tick, if you like. And then also you've got to know what's the drivers. What the drivers of that person? What are the restrictors of that person as well? What are their strengths that you can really hook into when you want someone to deliver the results? And of course, it comes down to the fact that those people will know that what they have to do, or hopefully will know. I mean, if you're a good manager, you've obviously given them a good task list to do. You've obviously given things that they're expected to hit. You've got some KPIs for them. But when do they actually know in that position what they're meant to do? But you know them as a person. What do you know is going to be their driver? And what's the thing that holds them back? Fourth on the list is be confident in your approach to challenging people. You need to be confident and go forward and say to the person, look, I expect this to be done. This is how we're going to do it. Let's go. So being confident in that approach to the people is the best way to actually do it. And of course, you've got to explain the reasons why you expect that to be done. You need to hook that back to the big why, but also you need to make the small why. So if you're asking them to do something that's completely out of there, you need to be telling them why. And also, you've got to be kind of expecting that you are going to have some pushback. So make sure that you know what kind of pushbacks you're going to get, and obviously walk through that with that person so they understand. Fifth in the list is around offering a solution as well as instruction. So you want to be on the same page, in the same boat, but you also want to be giving some sort of solution. So walking and going, that needs to get better, and walking out doesn't help anyone. You need to go in and sort of saying, I expect this solution to be happening, but what can I do to help you get there? I've said it many times, you're there to clear the path as a manager for that person to be successful. So you need to be giving them some clear instructions, clear solutions, not saying that you don't let them do it yourself, but you want to make sure that you're there to help and support as you go forward. Next point is about ownership. So with a person or the department, it's not an outside-in approach, it's an inside fighting out. So you want them to walk away and feel that the person or the department that you've asked for them to do the delivering isn't on their own. It's back to the point before about offering solutions and not just instructions. But this way you're actually helping that person to deliver with that department and making sure that they understand you're on that same page. And of course, delivering through others is the big overarching of all this. As a manager, you're going to have to get others to do it because you can't do it all yourself. And it's about collaborating. Let them take the credit sometimes for their success. That's fine. And if it fails, then it's on you. But you need to celebrate that and make sure that the people do know. So there's some do's. Looking at some don'ts. So don't be passive aggressive. If you want something doing, say what you want to do. Call it what it is and say it. It's a much better way of doing it than try to passively aggressively do it and then be disappointed when the results don't come through. And don't look at the stealth approach, of getting things done by sneaking in and saying everything's wrong and then disappearing. Be visual, so don't disappear. If you've got something that needs doing, it's a challenge, be with them. Show them what you want to be done and go through the process with them so that they understand that you're there in the trenches with them. Then back to my last point on the don'ts is don't expect people to do what you think. So, sometimes you think that person's going to do exactly what you're thinking. So if you're passively aggressively not explaining it right, you're doing it by stealth, then funnily enough, things don't happen. So don't expect the people to know what you know. Show them, tell them, give them support, and that makes it a lot easier. So to close out, it's not wrong to challenge people in the right way. And it's the right thing to do to get people to deliver the results and the goals that you need, because that's why you're there. Now, how you do it is the key. It's not just about the what, it's also about the why. So just remember when you're doing these things that you are on their same page as them and delivering the results for the overall aim. So just to recap, the do's, is everyone on the same page? If not, make sure they are. Know the person behind the position, so make sure you get to know that person and know what drives them and restricts them. Be confident in your approach to the challenge. Be clear of what you're going to say. Explain the whys of why you're doing it. Offer solutions, not just instructions. Make sure that it's not an outside in, but an inside fighting out. And make sure that you celebrate and give the people credit for the successes. And the don'ts, don't be passively aggressive. Say what you want. No stealth approach to getting things done. And don't expect people to know what you know. Well, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thanks so much for listening, and as ever, it'd be lovely to hear your thoughts on the show, both good and bad, as feedback is a gift, so please send it to the managermattpodcast@gmail.com, I read all the emails myself and would love to engage on new or old topics. And remember, please put into action what you've learned today, because you get nothing for nothing. Well, that's it again for Manager Matt this week. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.